All right. Good morning, board members Garrett and Vollendroff. The lobby is open and the recording has begun.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone. I want to call the May 11 Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board meeting to order. David is on a leave, so I will be chairing the meeting this morning. And I want to begin by introducing our new board member, Jim Vollendroff.
Good morning. Thank you.
This is Jim's first official board meeting. Jim was appointed by Governor Inslee and started with the agency last Tuesday. He has over 35 years behavioral health background. He has 13 years as a provider with Providence, 16 years with King County Department of Community and Human Services. And 2019, he was recruited as the founding director of the Harborview UW Medicine Behavioral Health Institute. And he was actually recommended to the Governor Inslee for appointment for this role via a letter that was signed by 22 legislators. So Jim, welcome to the board and welcome to your first board meeting.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to participate in the board. I've been impressed with what I've seen so far, and I'm really excited to bring my literally decades of experience to the Liquor and Cannabis Board, and I look forward to meeting members of the community. I've had people reach out already and setting up meetings, and I'm looking forward to meeting more people in the industry side of this business. So thank you so much.
Welcome. And we'll begin this morning with Kathy giving us rulemaking timelines.
Thank you, Board Member Garrett, and good morning to both you and Member Vollendroff. And I'm so glad to work with you. Looking forward to many years, I hope, of partnering in this great work together.
Thank you,
Just
Kathy.
so glad you're here. So I want to give a monthly update for May. And starting with general rulemaking, Audrey will be presenting the proposal for electronic filing rules this morning, and she'll provide a summary on that project and its background in a few moments. With respect to alcohol rules, we will bring the CR 103 or rules for final adoption on axe throwing to you at the next board meeting on May 25th. The presentation had originally been scheduled for today, but we wanted to assure that all three board members had the opportunity to vote on adoption of final rules with that project. With respect to the implementation of Senate Bill 5940 concerning the contract packaging services endorsement, no comments have been received to date on the CR 101, and that was filed on April 27. The comment period remains open on that until June 17th. And we began internal rule drafting meetings this month, and there's a few others scheduled for this month as well. So moving on to cannabis rules in progress, excuse me. I'll be asking you to withdraw the rule proposal on social equity rules a little further along in the agenda today. And also further down on the agenda, Robert will be presenting the CR 101 or inquiry, pardon me, around THC definitions. And then Jeff will provide background on the project related to pesticide action levels prior to the opening of the hearing on that rule project. So we can hear about a little more on those projects at that time. So to wrap up, the project to implement House Bill 1210, and that changes the word marijuana to cannabis throughout our rules using the expedited process, has received 2 comments so far. Largely in support of the project. So with that, I'll conclude. Any questions before we move on with the agenda?
No questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, with that, we will move on to general rulemaking with Audrey.
Good morning, board members Garrett and Vollendroff. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today. Today, I'm requesting approval to file a CR 102 rule proposal related to electronic transmission of documents for service and filing. For background, this project was initiated on February 2nd, 2022, when the board approved filing the CR 101 pre-proposal statement of inquiry. A new rule section authorizing service and filing of documents by electronic transmission is needed to streamline and modernize business and adjudicative processes as well as bring a consistent approach to this issue across the agency. We anticipate these rules will benefit anyone that interacts with the agency, as well as reduce potential impacts to the Agency Technology Systems Modernization Project, or SMP. LCB staff from the Board Adjudications Unit, Licensing Division, Enforcement and Education Division, as well as the Finance Division were all involved in developing the proposed rule language. To engage stakeholders, we shared the conceptual draft rules publicly through Gov Delivery on April 11th, 2022, and we received 3 public comments on the conceptual draft. These comments were neither for nor against the rulemaking. We received some questions, statements of interest, and operational feedback. Those comments are included in Attachment B to the CR 102 memo and were taken into consideration by the project team as we developed the proposed rules. In summary, the proposed rules adopt electronic transmission as an additional means for service and filing of documents. Electronic transmission is defined as including but not limited to email, web portal, fax, or other similar methods. The rule also outlines procedures for service and filing and describes how the date and time of delivery or receipt will be determined. In this case, the agency estimates businesses will not have any costs associated with complying with the proposed rules. Since the proposed rules authorize electronic transmission as an additional means, all other existing options for service and filing, such as by mail or in person, would remain viable options. And the CR 102 form describes this Regulatory Fairness Act analysis in more detail. So in terms of timeline, if the CR 102 is approved today, I'll file it with the code revisor and the formal public comment period will open. Notice will be published in the state register on June 1st and the public hearing will be set for June 22nd. The public comment period will close end of day on June 22nd, and after that, the earliest the CR 103 could be filed would be July 6th. If approved and filed on July 6th, the final rules would go into effect on August 6, 2022. So that concludes my presentation, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Jim, do you have any questions?
I have no questions, but I do have a comment, and just to make a comment on the thoroughness of this and the work, Audrey, of you and your team, I think that making sure that the electronic transition is in addition to the way that we're currently doing business is very thoughtful in terms of the continuity of operations for businesses. So thank you for that. And I also appreciate how it lines up with the overall systems improvement initiative. Thank you.
And with that, can I get a motion to approve the CR 102 for electronic service and filing rules?
I make a motion that we approve the rulemaking. Yes.
For electronic services.
Thank
And I
you.
second. Thank you, Audrey.
Thank you very much.
And with that, we will move back to Kathy on cannabis related rulemaking.
Thank you very much, Board Member Garrett, and good morning again to both you and Board Member Wollendroff. This morning, I would like to request your approval to withdraw the proposed rulemaking, or the CR 102, that we filed as WSR, it stands for Washington State Register 2209036, on April 13th of this year regarding amendments to existing rules and a new rules section that would establish the social equity and cannabis program in response to recommendations of the social equity in cannabis task force, and it made some other statutory amendments as well, or amendments consistent with statute. So I would like to ask for your withdrawal at this time because the agency wishes to engage in additional research and analysis to make sure we align with the intent of the social equity program. We anticipate presenting an updated rule proposal once that additional research and analysis is completed. And we're tentatively scheduled, thinking that'll be done and ready by the June 22nd board meeting, so just a few weeks away. We remain committed to implementing a successful social equity program. So for these reasons, I would ask for your approval to withdraw this proposal today. Any questions?
Thank you, Kathy. I'm looking forward to the updated, and I think that we discussed that this withdrawal would only delay the complete rulemaking process by a couple of weeks.
A couple of weeks, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Jim, did you have something?
So it does not impact the overall timeline.
It doesn't, and and I know you weren't here while these rules were being developed, but we did start with a very aggressive timeline to begin this work. And there was some time built into it in the event that something like this might happen, as does with rulemaking sometimes.
Yeah.
So yes, this does not impact the timeline significantly.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. And with that, can I get a motion to withdraw the CR 102 regarding social equity in cannabis?
Yes, I make a motion that we withdraw CR 102 regarding social equity in cannabis.
And I approve. Motion passed. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
We would now move on to our action item, and Robert is going to be the presenter on that. Robert, are you with us?
I am, thank you. And good morning, Acting Chair Garrett and Board Member Volendroff.
Hi, Robert.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks.
This morning, I'd like to request your approval to file a CR 101 pre-proposal statement of inquiry regarding expanding definitions related to the evaluation of additives, solvents, ingredients, compounds, or concentrates used in the production or processing of cannabis products. I provided a brief in caucus yesterday. But to reiterate, the purpose of this inquiry is to consider whether to amend or repeal existing rule sections to expand on definitions related to the terms previously listed. If approved for filing today, here is the tentative timeline for this project. The CR 101 will be filed today with the Office of the Code Reviser, and the informal comment period will begin. We will then update internal and external LCB websites and send a notification regarding the filing to our stakeholders. As Kathy mentioned at caucus yesterday, 2 additional deliberative dialogues related to this CR project, one in May and one in June, as well as a listen and learn session tentatively scheduled for early July, will also be taking place. After that, on September 14th, the CR 102 will be presented to the board to approve for filing proposed rules. On October 26th, the public hearing would then be held. And then on November 23rd, a CR 103 would be presented to the board to approve adoption of rules, making the rules effective on December 24th. So that concludes the presentation on this rule project, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Jim, do you have any questions?
I have no questions.
Okay, with that, can I get a motion to approve the CR 101 for expanding definition related to the evaluation of additives?
I make a motion that we approve CR 101 for expanding definitions related to evaluation of additives, solvents, ingredients, compounds, or concentrates used in the production and processing of cannabis products.
And I approve. Thank you. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
Now we will move on to our public hearing today. Jeff, Policy and Rules Coordinator.
Good morning, Member Garrett and Member Volendroff. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today with you. The rule proposal before you today for public hearing would update technical chemical isomer information in WAC 314-55-108 for several of the pesticides currently allowed for use in the production of cannabis. Other changes to this rule would update rule language to ensure consistency with recently adopted cannabis quality control testing rules, including removal of language concerning the remediation of cannabis products that have failed quality control testing. And finally, the proposed rule amendments would remove redundant language from the rules section and would also replace the term quality assurance testing with quality control testing. This CR2 for these proposed rules was approved and filed on March 30th, 2022. Since then, we have received 2 comments on the proposed rules. We anticipate bringing a CR 103 to you for consideration on May 25th, 2022, assuming that no substantive changes are made to the rule proposal. And under this timeline, the rule would become effective 31 days after, which would be on June 25th, 2022. And that concludes my introduction on this rulemaking for the hearing today. And may I answer any questions?
I have no question, and if Jim, you don't have any questions, we will move into comments. And I think we have signed up for this hearing, Jim McRae. Dustin, is Jim with us this morning?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Hi, I just want to provide a little bit of public input here that the agency has heard in the past regarding pesticide action levels. This was submitted a number of years ago by a gentleman who at the time had run the pesticide regulation function within the WSDA for over a decade, one Eric Johansson. And he submitted this, some version of the written testimony I just submitted this morning in 2018. And in those suggestions, Mr. Johansson effectively suggested and reiterated a point he had made on numerous occasions to the agency that the adoption effectively of the Oregon standards by Washington State and the failure to adopt the recommended standards recommended by the Department of Health in this state and the Department of Agriculture in this state jointly to the agency resulted in a set of pesticide action standards that effectively were not protective of human health. I'm not using the right words probably, but he was concerned at the time. And he gave his testimony, and I've given it written, so I'm not going to speak it out here. It relates to specifically changing some action levels based on whether or not pesticides in question are allowed for use on any foodstuffs in the rest of the non-cannabis market. He really did run through this, and it was a shame at the time, I feel, and now I feel as well, that the agency does not seem to have seriously entertained his input and the input of the department at the time. Now, so I'm not going to read them all right now. I'm going to use my time for something else, which I will expand upon in the general comments. However, there are a couple of other things in these rules that I did not put in my written input. One is, in trying to align them with the quality control, not assurance, quality control changes that you put into place a month or two ago, you've chosen to make them aligned with, I think it's 102 or one of the subsets of the WAC there. I want to remind you that there's another subset of the WAC that also makes reference to pesticide action levels that now will be the inconsistent one and doesn't seem to have been covered in any of these rulemaking sessions. And that's the one that relates to the CBD, the imported CBD testing, which requires pesticides. And it still uses the old language. So for example, the standard of whether something is bad for a pesticide there uses the word if it is deleterious. These current rules that you passed a month ago and the ones that you will basically accord by adoption in these rules change the word deleterious to harmful. So there was never any explanation given for that change of language. It's fairly obvious from a legal perspective that that raises the bar somewhat for bringing punitive action against someone who abuses it and puts consumers at risk. So again, it's an industry-friendly, certainly an industry-friendly move. It's not a very consumer or patient-friendly move. And that's a theme that goes through, I'll be frank, the way this agency has run the quality assurance and quality control rules over the past few years. Many opportunities have been afforded to improve the lot of consumers of cannabis in this
Jim,
state
you have
with
30
respect to
seconds.
safety. Thank you, Dustin. With respect to the safety of the product, and those opportunities are generally not grasped. And indeed, with every single successive iteration of quality assurance, quality control rules, the agency has further degraded the quality and safety of the product that is available on the market. You'll be hearing more from me on that later. However, for this, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Please consider this input. It really is Eric's input primarily, but I thought it needed to be said again. Thank you.
Thank you. And it doesn't look like we have anyone else signed up for the public hearing. So with that, we will close out the public hearing. And we will now go into general public comment. I just want to give a reminder. My mic is on, yes. A reminder that we are recording. Once called on, be patient while Dustin is able to enable your audio and your video. State your name and affiliation for the record, and be mindful of your time. You have 4 minutes with a 30-second warning. And with that, the first person we have signed up for general public comment is Christopher King.
Pepper, quiet. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Pepper, they can hear you too. Quiet, honey. To the last gentleman, briefly, I just want to mention that the testing issues and failures of LCB, that has been going on for some time. My camera won't turn on for some reason. That's odd. But such is life. These problems have been going on for some time, and that is the subject of some Rule 408 settlement negotiations that John Novak and I are having, and Jim McCrae is helping out with that. And I'm not sure how much of that I can share with you, but we share your concerns on that front. And as part of our federal litigation, you can look the case up and see some of the issues there. We've been working on that in a professional manner with them, and there are all kinds of holes in that some of which we agree with you that you just pointed out on the deleterious to harmful. That's one of them. So we're in lockstep on that one. Next, I have a couple questions on protocol for the board, seeing as we're going back in to work these initiatives out as far as cannabis equity. Libby Haynes. Now, she's the only Black person, a Black female that I know of, that we know of, who passed the so-called fraudulent lottery. Now, that's what Daryl Powell said, and the ACP economic advisor said it was fraudulent. And by the way, I have an email from Jim Buchanan who said that Daryl Powell likes my work. That's a fact, okay? But anyway, so what I'm getting at with Libby Haynes is that I return to my original premise, which is that the pioneers and the people who passed the lottery, but then who had rules applied to them that were subsequently changed, they should be at the front of the bus, okay? Not the back of the bus. They're sitting up front with Rosa, all right? So I can't see any reason why. Can anybody on that board see any reason why someone like Libby Haynes should not be at the front of the bus now? Anyone?
Mr. King, we're listening to your public
I'm
comment.
allowed to ask a question. If you're not going to answer it, I'll just let the record reflect nobody answered it. That's fine. I'll move along. Next point. Protocol. I'm wondering about some protocol issues and what happens when you receive information or questions from BIPOC constituents. Because I have a certified email, certified return receipt before me from Kevin Shelton with a final date of 8 July 2020 as social equity was just starting. And that is numbered 7019-228-0000-9170-1812, received by the board on that date. And this is a letter to you, Ms. Garrett. And so the question becomes, what happens with that correspondence? Because he's sworn under oath that he did that pursuant to Nate Miles' instruction. And nobody's controverted that, even though Nate Miles' lawyer sent me a cease and desist request 2 weeks ago, and I told them, provide some affidavits and we'll talk, you know? Right, it's pretty simple, right? And they haven't done that. So I'm just curious, what is the protocol when you receive something like that? What happens to it? Does it just sit there, or there has to be, you know, I was a government lawyer. I know there's protocols and procedures for when you receive public inquiry like that. So does anybody know what, can you identify where that protocol is for me to look up, or what?
As I stated, we're just here to hear your public comment. Dustin is taking notes of things, and he will get back to you to answer your questions.
Okay, but I'm asking you though, Ms. Garrett, do you remember receiving the letter from Mr. Shelton?
I'm only here
Mr.
to
King, you
listen
have
to your
30
proposals.
seconds.
Okay, great. Also, does anybody here ever remember me making any anti-Semitic comments? Because I was accused of that by Paula Sardinas, who also said I was disbarred. That's false. because in point of fact, I was suspended for 1 year, and my Jewish mentor said that racism, ignorance, and reactionary politics played a role in that 1 year suspension. So that was defamation when she reached out to Sami Saad to tell him that. It's a material difference between a 1 year suspension and something of moral turpitude that would result in disbarment. I can go rejoin the bar today if I pay off my fines. Okay, so I'm not disbarred. That's false. All right, just making that clear.
Christopher, that's your time.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Next up, we have Sami Saab. Dustin, is Mr. Saab with us today?
He is, and he has the controls. He just needs to be able to unmute and turn his camera on.
Mr. Saab, are you with us? Okay, Dustin, next up we have, okay, wait, Mr. Saab seems to be with us. You're muted, Mr. Saab.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Mr.
Hello?
Saab, we can hear you.
You guys can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, my name is Sami Saad. Mr. Jim, I want to welcome you for the board. You're a new board member.
Thank you.
But you don't know a lot of stuff happened to us. I created this business. I came the first one. I'm Muslim. It don't make me better than anyone. I am African. I am black. But we're being disrespected by the board. Miss Eddie Garrett herself, she say, I will help you when she meet with us publicly. And she know I was the first one. I create this business like everybody else, like Shelton. He was speaking about it right now. I am African mixed with a little Jewish. It don't make me better than anyone. But unfortunately, everything it went to the white Jewish. This is not against Jewish. This against the white Jewish. They took everything for themselves. They came after us. They get everything. Miss Eddie Garrett, her ex-boyfriend just got a shop. You know, his name is Nate Mile. That's a disrespect to the community. I came and I voted for this bill, HB 2870. I went to Olympia. And I opposed the bill at the end because Mr. Shelton and his brother, they told me, and Peter Manny, the one he got a weed shop with Nick Mile, they get weed shop. They was against this bill. They told me, don't vote. They're using us. Patty Grew, the legislator, he get mad at him. But they make this bill pass anyway. They said, we will listen to you guys. They pointed Saldana. She didn't help us. I went to her office. I've been disrespected. Mr. Jim, they need to address our issue. We have a lawsuit going on. I've been threatened to be killed. Don't speak about Jewish community. I'm mixed with the Jewish. This is not against Jewish. This is against those group of people. They're making Jewish people bad, and they are not. If you know who I am one of those guys. We have making a great relationship between Israel and Sudan. I'm from Sudan. And the embassy testified that, and I have emails. So I own one of the best junk removal company, or the biggest junk removal company in Seattle. And I own different businesses. I made the weed shop to help in the community. Everybody know who I am in Rainier area and Renton. I shouldn't even say that because I've been threatened. They broke my glasses and all that. And I lost the trust in the LCB. I lost the trust in the fake police. You know, I'm even taking it to FBI. Mr. Jim, the governor appointed you. They need to know Miss Ellie Garrett and Paula Sardania, because they don't represent us. They're using us. Ellie Garrett came after that to reinstate her ex-boyfriend license. That's what I think. She came in 2016. She was dating him before that. The people get the license. That's the people she used to date, 2 of them. Did it make sense? Me, Mr. Shelton, and Latanya, what her name? I forget her name. Libby. We are not getting anything. We should be in the front of the bus, not because we are better than anyone. We create this. We lost thousands of dollars. I used to support people, Mr. Jim. You like a doctor. You used to work for the hospital. Use your common sense. Mr. Jim, I have family now that became crackhead. I used to pay their rent. Ask about me if as a community, I'm a community leader. First thing, I am Black, I am mixed, I am African, I'm Sudanese. We are more than
Gabby, you have 30
65,000
seconds.
Washingtonians. Do you know, Mr. Jim, the social equity group, they made it. Even they didn't listen to our opinion. This board member, you guys, you have to be careful supporting each other. You have to be very careful because you guys damaging us. They don't even take the public opinion. Do you know, we were repeating the story over and over and over, this one for 2 years, this bill going on. Hey, you guys mistreating us. They meet with my community. It's been assigned by the social equity groups, and that group is not exist, I think, anymore for this to help us. I've
Sammy,
been
that's
shut
your
my
time.
mouth by this board,
Thank
by,
you,
by Mr.
Scott.
David. He stopped my first amendment. That's not
Sammy,
fair.
that's your time.
This place is stop
Yeah.
cutting me off because you are making me sick.
Next up, we have Peter Manning. Mr. Manning, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I'd like to say to welcome Jim Bollendorf with LCB and thank you for having me. This is Garrett. I have just some couple questions for Mr. Bollendorf. I'm trying not to butcher your name.
No, you
We've
did good.
had a problem. Thank you. We've had a problem with social equity in Washington. I, along with a person by the name of Aaron Barfield, Paula Sardinas, for years we fought for social equity. You know, we were somewhat instrumental in we helped draft House Bill 2870 dealing with the social equity. I belong to Black Excellence of Cannabis. I should state that. My question to you is, are you aware of the problems that Black people and brown people have faced with this industry? And what do you hope to bring about being a board member now? What's your target? What's your goal? I mean, I know this is more inclusive than just social equity, but what are you going to do for social equity? Can you tell us that?
Well,
Black Excellence, no.
Yeah, I think that as Acting Chair Garrett indicated, we're here really to listen more than respond. But I will say that I have a deep commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's been a part of the work that I've done at the University of Washington. I also have a deep commitment to the mission of the LCB, and I will do my best to listen. I'm really in a mode of listening and understanding at this particular time, and welcome conversations as I get more familiar with the work of the LCB to further have conversations around this particular issue. I've been impressed of the work that I've seen so far regarding social equity, and look forward to continuing to support the efforts of both the industry side and the LCB in regard to social equity.
Okay, great. Hey, I just want to say this. We believe here at Black Excellence of Cannabis that Governor Inslee and the LCB, we believe you guys are making progress. We see a change in the board. We see a change in the LCB direction. We recognize that. And I'm going to try to address that and bring that to my community and tell them that. But what I said before, I just want to say this. I think that there should be some type of press release from the LCB or the board to the Black community and brown community to let them know the progress that's going on or what's happening out there, what you guys are trying to accomplish. Because there's so much misinformation that's put out there about everything that is just not accurate. It's not right. We need clarity, and just coming from me doesn't help. I think something would have to be said from the board and from the LCB about this issue of social equity. And that's all I have to say. And hey, thank you. I'll just keep hanging out here at the meeting and check everything out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. And next up, we have Jim McRae. Jim, are you back with us?
I'm reconnecting him now.
Okay.
Hello,
Hello.
can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you so much. I want to reiterate other speakers' welcome to board member Vollendroff. Welcome. I was
Thank you.
thrilled. Well, I was really thrilled when I saw that you had a behavioral health background. I think that's going to be a wonderful addition to the oversight of the agency. And at some point, hopefully, we'll get an opportunity to speak one-on-one. I'm an experimental psychologist by training, did substance abuse research way back when, and have been an avid student of the data that have been thrown out by the market in Washington State over the last 8 years. So that's my background. Couple of things. I wanted to follow up a little on my input earlier. Thank you, Dustin, for allowing me to do this by phone. The gentleman, one thing you may have noticed is you didn't get a whole lot of input on this rule set, and it's a fairly important one when you consider that now, the 99% of the product sold in this market that's not medical for patients is now actually going to be tested for pesticides. That's a very good thing. That is progress. It's so much of the other little things that were done in the rules that bring it as a step backwards in overall consumer safety, in my opinion. And I have pretty strong and well-informed opinions about that, in my opinion. I want to give you a bit more story about the gentleman who did the rules that I submitted in writing earlier this morning. And it might speak to why you sometimes have a dearth of input. And, on October 3rd, 2018, Eric Johansson gave testimony to the board at a public hearing. It was item D on that agenda. You might want to listen to the recording of it. It's at time 2:20 on that recording. And he basically stated his opinion. And then board member Houji, I believe board member Garrett, you may have been there at that meeting, asked him, is he speaking for himself or speaking for the agency, the Department of Agriculture? And he said he was speaking for the Department of Agriculture. It's his job. He's, being a cannabis point, and he's a pesticide guy there. So within 3 working days, he was pulled from his cannabis responsibilities by the WSDA. And within 2 or 3 more working days, he was pulled from over a decade of leading the pesticide registration program at the agency. So, I read that as a vindictive action on the part of the agency, because a very good public servant did not follow the party line, and perhaps put, inappropriately the words of the agency in his mouth, but he was working on his job. So, that the vindictiveness, it's not just go to licensees, it goes to public servants, it goes to anybody that crosses the agency. That is part of the culture of what you're now overseeing, Mr. Vollendroff. It's there, it's real. I mean, you can read the history. I can give you a summary one-on-one at some point if you'd like to know. 2 other things, and this is the kind of behaviors of the agency that really should be reeled in a little bit. We've just recently gone to referring to cannabis instead of marijuana. That's very good. One of the recent outputs from the agency made reference to high THC cannabis, which is a value-driven term. No doubt your communications people had something to do with forming it. I would suggest you not use such terminology. Cannabis is defined as having
Jim, you
more
have
than
30 seconds.
Thank you. It is defined on the basis of its THC content, which is more than 0.3%. Less than that, it's hemp. So to now begin bringing in a term that is not defined of high THC cannabis, it's value-laden, it feeds into certain, I would say, prevention-minded and biased perspectives. And finally, canopy, the stuff you're doing on canopy. The new interpretation, I warned you in February not to listen to the direction staff was going. They've put this new interpretation out there that, while
Jim, that's your
simple to
time.
measure, is horrible. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. And if there's more you want to add, you can email that to us and we will take a look at it. With that, that's it for general comment. And with that, the May 11th board meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.